Hello everyone, I want to welcome you to the first session of our two-part series on exploring the dashboard in our Antero maintenance software. I'm Shane in technical support and I'll be conducting this webinar today. Allmax Software wants to thank everyone for signing up and participating. We do have several attendees, so because of this I have muted everybody. In the event you have any questions, you can type them into the chat window, and either myself or another tech is currently available to answer those questions for you. Now, keep in mind we are conducting this webinar online, so if any internet-related delays or interruptions occur, this will not affect the recording. Everyone will be receiving a recording of each session, so don't worry if you get pulled away from your computer or you miss anything during a section of the webinar. We will be recording this entire session, so you'll have the ability to play it back at a later date. So I want to go ahead and get started. Now, in the first session of our Antero dashboard webinar, we're going to cover these items that I have up here on the screen. We're going to be looking at the purpose and scope of dashboards, creating dashboard views and pages, the types of container pages and calendar pages that are available to you inside the Antero software when you build your dashboard, and then also how you can apply security to your dashboards. So we'll be taking a look at all of that. The first thing I want to do is just go over some terminology that'll help you understand the application and how the icons work a little better. Keep in mind when you ask what a dashboard is that this really is a feature of Antero that allows users to display data as well as links to other features in the program by creating views that can be customized for each user. So each user can create their own dashboard and save that in the program. Now, when I say views, what I mean is views are set up from the dashboard application ribbon, and that's what will allow the users to create customizable calendars, containers, and hotspots to access your data inside Antero. And then your pages are going to be the individual tabs like we have set up here now that are created, and inside each view you can create multiple tabs which will allow the user to create and name multiple pages. So you can see I've named some of these pages for this webinar as an introduction page, a dashboard. I have a couple calendars up here. I'll have a container page, and then I have a page I have set up to go over what we'll cover in the next webinar session. And you can organize how data is displayed in each dashboard view that is created. So our philosophy behind why dashboards are important to the program is simply that with the ability to manage and create dashboards that are unique to each user or group of users' workflow, the process of managing your data is controlled more by the user by being able to customize a view. So the first thing I want to look at is how you would go about creating a dashboard with views inside the program. So we're going to go ahead and go over the application ribbon up here. You'll see that I am in the dashboard tab. So many of you are used to going to the view tab. For dashboards, there is a tab that takes you to all the application features of the dashboard section of the program. You'll see we have binoculars here, which are views. So those are the particular dashboards that are set up for each user, and you can name those whatever you'd like. So in this case, I have dashboard webinar up right now, which is right here. If I were to switch, you can see I have a sample view which doesn't have anything set up. So this is pretty much a blank view, and this is what a view would look like when you create a new view. So once I've created views and I've saved those as dashboards, I can name those whatever I'd like. So it's not uncommon for there to be multiple views for each user. Each user could say, you know, this is Mike, or this is Shane's, or this is Carrie's or Stan's dashboard. You can look at that and you could create a dashboard for yourself. That way you can manage and modify that for the data that you need to view. To create a view, you simply go to the application ribbon under the dashboard tab and click on create a view. And then what that's going to do is that's going to create a new view. So if I hit create view, this is what's going to pop up. It's going to start by populating just a blank container page, and there will not be anything else there. So this is really where you're starting off fresh and what you'll see when you initially create a view. Once you start to create your view, I like to name my view right away so I know what it's called. So when you go in here and you click Save View, if you don't already have a name for your view, it's going to ask for that name. So we're going to go ahead and name this our dashboard sample view, and we can name it that, and then I can click OK. And then what you'll see is now when I populate my list, you'll now see that my dashboard sample view is saved to my list. So when I click on that, it's going to go to that view. The nice thing about the save option here as well is you have the ability to duplicate views and then modify them. So if there was an existing view, like the webinar view I created, and I wanted to modify that but keep the original dashboard, I could select the Save As option, rename it something else. So I'm just going to rename this just webinar, and then if I click OK, it will create that additional view. So then I can go into my saved as view, the webinar view, and I can make any modifications and changes and keep the original view intact. So that's a nice trick if you have someone that's already set up a view for the facility and you just want to copy that view and then modify it for your workflow or for the data that you'd like to see. So keep that in mind. You do have that ability to duplicate existing views. Now, with that said, if you do open an existing view and you go in and modify that, when you exit out of there, it's going to ask you to save changes. If you do save those changes, it will save those changes permanently to that particular dashboard view. So we'll go back and we'll go back to our dashboard sample view. And then once you create your view, which we just did, you're going to notice that you have a container page that appears. So one of the important things to understand is that when you create your view, you have a couple options here. The first is to add additional pages. So when you open that up, you have three options here. You have a container page, which adds a blank container page just like we have here. And then you can also add your calendars. We have two calendars available in Antero, which are really useful. As we have an open work order calendar that will show all your existing open work orders, and you can filter that by month or by week or by day, depending on which layout design you choose. It will modify that for us, and you can see as you change your view that it starts to show more specific information for that layout. So this would be a daily view, and then if we go back, we could see that we have a weekly view, and then you can get a month overview. You'll see all your work order numbers appear here, as well as the fact that you also have any delinquent work orders. So if you do set a number of days for a work order to be completed and it's not completed by that time frame, it will show up in red here in your calendar, indicating that this work order is overdue. The other page that we have the ability to add is our work forecast calendar. So if we were to select that, you'll see that we'll have a work forecast calendar appear. You won't see any open work orders in this calendar. What this will do is this will show any scheduled work orders that you have coming up based on any templates you've set up in Antero. So if you have scheduled work orders that have not been created as open work orders yet, those will appear here in your work forecast calendar. And you can go in and you'll see that they'll appear by the template name. So it doesn't, since there's no individual work order yet, it'll simply populate the template name. If you wanted to view more information, you could right click and go to that template and see what exactly is being performed in that task. And then our other option is to go down here to the bottom and add data containers to a container page. So you can see currently these are grayed out. So in order to add data containers, you have to add those to a container page. So that's what these container pages are for. These are pages that allow you to add different types of data containers to each page. and they'll allow you to display data for work orders, meters and gauges, links to other documents, as well as links to any folders or files on your network. All of those can be set up here from your container page right here in the central location. And there are four different types of containers that are available inside Antero. And you can see I'm going to click on each one of these, and it's going to populate each one of these on that blank container page for me. So the first container it's going to populate is a data container. So data containers in Antero can provide summarized results of open work orders and work order history data. So I'm going to go ahead and flip back to my other view that I've set up for the webinar. So I'm going to save these changes. So I can go ahead and save what we just created, and then I can flip back to our dashboard webinar. And you'll see that I already have some containers types displayed here. So these are the same four containers we just created, but these have been set up to actually display data. So you'll see in the first data container, it's displaying, in this particular case, my delinquent work orders. So it's giving me the total count of delinquent work orders, and it's also counting from a previous time frame for that same year. If I had data, it would populate that so I could compare that. Now, the nice thing about this is you'll be able to modify what kind of data it displays based on the options tab here. You'll be able to go in and organize it by different types of work order. You can do open work order or work order history. And actually, it looks like I had it organized by work order priority, but I wanted to show delinquency so I could see the actual delinquent count of my work orders. And in our next webinar, we'll go into the specifics of all the properties and options that are available for each one of these container types. So today I really want to cover all the features that are available for the Antero dashboard, and then explain what those features are, and then we'll go into our next webinar exploring all the properties and settings for those features. The second container that you see up there on the page here is our graph container. Now, this type of container will allow you to display gauge and meter readings that are set up in Antero. The nice thing about this graph container is it'll also, for the graph container, it's going to allow you to see graphs or charts for data for meters and gauges. And the nice thing about this is data can be graphed using a line bar. In this case, you'll be able to modify that to horizontal columns, vertical columns, or you could do a scatter graph. So you have those graphing options inside this graph container. And it also will display the date range that I have selected here. So right now I'm displaying my current month, and I'm displaying this for my sample data for my F250 odometer. So it tells me what I'm looking at right here. And of course, any meters and gauges you have set up in the program, you can also create a graph container for those. It'll also display your minimum, average, and max value for the date range that you select. And then we also have just a direct gauge container, which that's going to display your gauge and meter readings that are set up in Antero. The nice thing about this is you will also be able to view the minimum, average, and max summary values for that date range that's currently selected. And this is for my equipment up here, which if I highlight that, it'll tell you what the equipment is and what type of meter I'm looking at here. And then our last container type that can be created inside a container page is our navigation container. So a navigation container is nothing more than a quick shortcut to navigate out to files that are either on your local computer or accessible on your shared network. You can see I've added 3 documents here. If I click on any of these documents from this navigation container, it will bring up, for this example, an Excel template I have here, or if I had a Word document or anything like that, it'll bring that up and that will populate, and it'll populate that right here on your screen for you. You also have the ability to add links to websites or anything. So anything that you can navigate out to on your computer network, you can assign simply by going to your browser, finding the particular file that you want to grab, and then clicking open, and you'll see that it'll populate this. This is a really nice resource if you have a lot of Excel files or reference documents, if you have PDFs for user manuals, or you have PDFs for equipment. Any reference documents that you'd like to attach to your particular dashboard, you can do that by creating a navigation container. You also have another option of creating a hotspot. So essentially, when you create a hotspot, what that is going to be is it's going to work very much like creating a link in a navigation container. You're going to drag on your, you're going to hold down the left button of your mouse, drag and create a box inside your container page, and then it's going to allow you to create that hotspot by giving it a description. You can select an image from our image library, and then again, you would link that externally to whatever you would like on your network or your hard drive. Once you've created a hotspot, you'll see that I have two created here. You can just double click on that hotspot, and it will populate whatever document I have linked there. So for this example, I have a PDF of the manual for Antero, and if I go to page 106, that will start discussing what we're discussing today, which is our dashboards and all the information that's available inside the manual for dashboards. But I also have, in addition to that, I have linked an Excel spreadsheet as well. So if I click on that, it'll bring up an Excel spreadsheet. So either way, you can create hotspots to link to documents or file locations, or you can create just a navigation container and then list all of those here. Now keep in mind you can change the display type for these as well, depending on how you'd like to view those. If you had several, you could create a whole list of linkable documents or reference items here, or you can just create hotspots on your desktop. So once you've done that, and I'm going to go back to our sample page here so we can take a look at that. And again, it's going to ask me to save any changes that I have there. So these are the blank data containers that we created earlier. You can see none of the properties for these are defined, so there's no data displayed in here. Keep in mind you also have a couple more options inside the container pages. So in addition to having the ability of creating these 4 different types of containers inside a container page, and also having the ability to draw on the container page and create hotspots, you also have the ability to customize your wallpaper for your container page. So the next icon we'll go over will be our options for our dashboard page. So you'll see that icon right there. If you click on that icon, it will pop up, and you can see that we have the ability to select a background image. So we could navigate out. If you had any saved images on your computer, you can navigate out to them, select an image, click open, decide how you want to center that image on the page. So whether you want to center it on the page, top left, or fit to page size, you can select your option. And then once you do that, you can save it, and then it'll create a wallpaper for you right here on the container page. So you can customize that to your liking. You could also add plants or pictures of your facility or your operations plant as well. You can add essentially any image you'd like to your wallpaper here for your container page. Now with container pages, keep in mind you can create as many of these as you'd like. So if I wanted to add another container page, I could add multiple container pages, just like I can also add multiple calendars. So those will appear, and you can see that I could add another forecast calendar as well. The nice thing about these pages is that I can right click on these and I can modify the name for any of these pages that I create. So if I have a container page, I can right click on it. So if I go to that page, I right click on it and I go to rename page, I can rename that. So if I was doing just a page for my meter and gauges, I could name it such, and then create a just create a bunch of gauge containers that would display all my meter and gauge readings for my equipment that's set up inside Antero. I could also create another container page if I wanted to create it for reference documents. I could do that. So I could create one with a navigation container and I could name it for reference documents. And then if I have multiple calendar pages open, the nice thing I can do is if I want to set a page to a specific time frame, I could do that. So if I wanted this to show the previous month instead of the current month, I could rename this. And instead of saying the open work order page, I could say previous month open work order, and then I could save that. And then I could also drag. So if I click on these and I hold down my left button, I can drag and organize the order of these pages as well. So the nice thing about that is if I have an open work order calendar here and I want to drag my previous month right before it, I can put that there. So I can go to my previous month, drag this here. I can go to my previous month, and then I can go to my current open work order month, and then I have two calendars without having to flip back and forth. The same if you wanted to create a calendar that had a weekly view, and then you wanted to create a calendar that had a monthly view. You could modify and create multiple calendars, so it's easy just to click and navigate to each calendar type. The same for a forecast calendar. If you wanted to look at 2018, I could create another forecast calendar, which I have down here, and I could modify my date range. And so if I wanted to see what was going to happen next year, I could go out and start that calendar on January of 2018. So I would have my current work forecast calendar for this calendar year, and then I could drag this over here and I can have my work forecast calendar page for 2018. And so I would have those all set up there so I could see those. And you can see they're a little touchy. You've got to kind of drop them right in the exact place to get them to go in order for you there. But that's another way to use that. Another useful tool would be to you could create multiple calendars for each employee. So the nice thing about the open work order calendar page is that when you're inside the open work order calendar page, you also have some filterable options here on the right. So we have a filter window that's available in 614. We added this with more features in 614 than from previous versions. So now you have the ability to filter your calendars based on all these different options. So right now in the top field, if you had multiple facilities set up in your database, you can choose to display all of those facilities or simply select the facility for which you want to see open work orders for. Then you also have the ability to filter any of your open work orders by any of these categories here. So if I want just building maintenance, for example, I can apply that filter and now I can see what work orders are associated with building maintenance. It's the same for mechanic or operations. I could apply that filter and see if I have any open work orders for that. If I want to go back and see all of them again, I can simply click clear filters and it will roll back to my original calendar view and get rid of any filters that I've defined over here. One of the really useful features also is if you want to filter your open work orders by employee. I can select an employee, I can assign apply filters, and then it will filter down to the employee that's been assigned that particular work order. If this were the case with Dave, I could also, if Dave was creating a calendar, I could rename that page and just call it Dave's work orders, and then he would be able to save that calendar, and he could even create his own dashboard view or save it to a dashboard view that everyone at the facility uses. And then when he pulls this up, he'd immediately be able to see that he has 2 overdue work orders on his calendar. And you can do that for any of the employees that you've assigned orders for in the program. So that can be useful. So each employee could have their own work order calendar. And you can go through all of these different options. You can start filtering by equipment, so it'll bring up a list of all the equipment you have in your database. You can do it by equipment department. You can also do it by priority, location, task. So if you know exactly what task you're looking for, you can filter those so you can find the work orders that are associated with that. And these filters work the same on the forecast calendar as well. You have maybe a few less options since they're not open work orders, but if you wanted to filter your forecast work orders, you have the ability to do that as well from the filters that are available there in the right side of the calendar. So it can be a powerful tool to display your delinquent work orders, multiple calendars for each employee assigned work, or you can filter by a variety of parameters. And once those are saved to the display, those selected options will be there when you open up your view and open up the software at a future date. So in addition, if we go to our container pages, in addition to assigning the options of assigning a wallpaper to your container page, you also have the ability, if you don't want to assign an image, you can navigate out and just choose a background color. So if I wanted to just select a background color, I could do that just by selecting that. And then once you do that, you click OK. And then I could go in and click OK on that, and then when I save this, it will apply that, and you'll see that it'll apply that color back here. If you already have an image, you can frame it with that, or if you don't have any image at all, when you select that option, you can just select a background color, and it will apply that to your settings here. So you got to be sure to save that, and then it'll create that as well if you don't want to put an image there into your wallpaper. You also, from the options icon, have the ability to select your hotspot color. So when you draw a hotspot, it creates a border, which you can see there. If you want to change the color of that border, you have the ability to do that from options here, and you can navigate out and you can select that color option as well. The other nice option you have when you're creating your view pages is you can set the program to open up your view page when you launch the program. So when you launch the program initially, a lot of you may be greeted by a gray desktop area. If that's the case, if you have this gray desk space work area, and then when you open up a section of the program, it'll populate that data here in this workspace. But you also have the ability to have the program default to your dashboard view when you launch the program. And in order to change that setting, you do have to go to the File tab. Once you've opened up the File tab, you'll notice there's a little Options button here. By selecting that Options button, you can do a couple things, but the main thing that you can do is you can also disable for updates as well if you get annoyed by that update screen and you're working in an older version. But the nice thing you can do is you can select your default dashboard view. So if I wanted to select a default dashboard view, I can select that, and then it'll save that in my options. So when I do launch the program again, it will bring that up. So if I exit out of the program and I relaunch it, instead of being greeted by my gray workspace, I'm now greeted by my dashboard. So if I had that open to an open calendar, I would be greeted by my open calendar page. So it's a quick way to come into work and find out, what's going on in terms of your work order schedule and the other data that can be evaluated inside your dashboard as well. If you want to look at your work order summary data container, or you want to take a look at some of your gauge and meter readings, or if you need to navigate out to some reference documents, you'd have all of that that would come up by default. The other thing I want to take a look at as well is the ability to set security for your dashboard. So if you go to your dashboard tab and you look at your views here, you can see that we have all these views, many of which we created during this webinar. Unless security is set for a particular user, any user can go in and they can delete these. So they can go in and modify or delete any dashboard that are set up. And the way you do that is you open your list of views, and it'll create a list of all our dashboards. And if I want to delete a dashboard, I can simply highlight it and hit an X, and it will completely delete that dashboard and it'll be gone. So anything that was set up in that dashboard, any data that was created, any navigation containers, links, all of that will disappear. So one thing you can do, if that's a concern, is you can go to File again and go to User Security. And then you have the ability under User Security, if you select the individual user, you can set the security level for dashboards. So you could say no save, which would prevent any individual from modifying any existing dashboards or deleting those dashboards. And that can be done here in the security section in the program. So that's going to wrap up this particular webinar. This was an overview of all the features available in the dashboard section. What we have coming up in the next webinar is we'll be looking at how we can define the properties for our containers. So we have all our different container types here. I'll go through all the different properties that can be defined for each data container and how those can be set up to display the data you'd like, as well as we'll be looking at a little closer of working with calendars and working with the filters in the calendar feature. I'll also be able to show you in more detail how you can navigate to different information inside the calendar. So you'll have the ability, for example, to print work orders from your calendar, to go to a work order from your calendar, as well as to be able to access the template that the work order is created in from your calendar. We'll also go over some of the summary values. As you can see down here, there is more information available in your calendar as far as your given time frame, whether you're displaying it by month, by week, or by day. It'll tell you how many total work orders you have, how many are open, how many are delinquent. So it'll give you a display of all of that information, and we'll be going into more details for that. Today was an overview of Dashboard, how it works, and how it can be created, as well as all the options that are available to you. If you have any questions, you can type those in, and we'll be happy to answer those. And then our next webinar, we will go over setting up and defining those properties. And then we'll show you some tips and tricks for setting up pages as well. And my name's Shane with Allmax Software, and that will conclude our first webinar on Antero dashboards.